Did you know that loneliness is as lethal as smoking 15 cigarettes a day? A greater health hazard than obesity. That social isolation worsens depression, anxiety, mood disorders, and cognitive decline, and is one of the causes of premature death. Sadly, there's a loneliness epidemic in this country, especially for older adults. Nearly 1/4 of adults over the age of 65 are considered socially isolated. We spend more than $20 billion every year on loneliness-related health care for this population. It's a national crisis. I'd like to introduce you to Dennis. Social isolation worried Dennis, an empty nester in his 50s looking ahead at retirement and imagining himself spending too much time alone in front of the television or on his computer following the NFL draft. But, instead, Dennis, the former high school football captain and career entomologist, dusted off his dreams of learning to play the saxophone. I met Dennis in 2003 when he joined the community concert band I was starting, a band designed for adult beginners, as well as adults who had played music in their youth and were seeking an opportunity to pick up their instrument again and play after many years of not playing. As someone who's played my entire life and taught music to children for most of my career, I knew that this band would offer adults like Dennis a wonderful opportunity to take up an instrument for the first time ever. But what I didn't know is that it would also offer people like Dennis not just a musical community, but also a social community, an important chance to make new friends. And that's no small thing, considering that studies show that making new friends after the age of 30 is increasingly difficult. I mean, you know how it goes. You get busy with your career and your family. If you're anything like me, you know that it takes 3 or 4 texts or email exchanges just to make dinner plans with a friend. And then you often find yourself waiting a month or more before you actually get to sit down and enjoy that meal together. Many of us are spending less and less time with friends and making fewer new friends along the way, so that when retirement eventually arrives, you're likely to discover that your list of close friends will have dwindled significantly. All of this should be pretty alarming to our aging population, particularly sizable in New Hampshire. We're living longer, but are we living well? If you Google healthy aging, which I Google everything, you'll discover that you'll get advice on exercise, nutrition, getting enough sleep, and avoiding vices that can cause disease like smoking or overindulgence in sugar or overconsumption of alcohol. But there's more to optimal aging than diet and exercise. If you dig deeper, you'll find that staying socially connected in your community is important. And having a passion, something to live for, is absolutely vital. What I began to learn back in 2003 with my community band is that playing music together in an ensemble, especially later in life, can be a source of passion and a powerful antidote to loneliness, providing relief from many of the negative outcomes associated with social isolation. The idea of the band came from Dr. Roy Ernst at the University of Rochester's Eastman School of Music. Dr. Ernst founded the first New Horizons band way back in 1991 with a simple premise: bring older adults together to make music in an ensemble from day one. This is how we teach band in elementary schools across America, because music educators like Dr. Ernst know music making is communal. Yet most adults who are interested in learning how to play an instrument think they have to take private lessons alone for an extended period of time before they dare play with others. They worry, what if I sound awful? What if I have no musical talent? This is how many people talk themselves out of even trying, leaving adult music making to people who've played actively their entire lives. Now, think of a 5th grade band and that wonderful explosion of joyous sound. You got it in your heads there? Kids don't hesitate. They don't worry about being beginners. They just go for it. And we love it. But after elementary school and maybe the start of middle school, that entry point for new musicians begins to disappear. And for too many people, the thought of learning to play a musical instrument becomes just another fading dream. It takes a leap of faith to begin a late-in-life musical journey. This is why I started the first New Horizons band in New Hampshire. We've been rehearsing every Tuesday evening since 2003, even figuring out how to rehearse over Zoom during the height of the pandemic. And that original band has spawned many offshoots. String orchestras, blues bands, flute choirs, bluegrass ensembles, even an alt-rock band that performed last night down the street at 3S Art Space. Yeah. And so much more, an entire community of adult amateur musicians. The whole experience proved to be transformative, just as Dr. Ernst knew it would be. And as is evidenced by the hundreds of independent New Horizon music ensembles that now exist all over the world, part of a growing movement often referred to as creative aging. Dennis still remembers that first rehearsal, taking in a deep breath, putting his horn to his lips, pressing down on one of the keys and blowing. Hearing that first note come out of his saxophone, he told me, was one of the greatest experiences of his life. 19 years later, Dennis is still playing in the band. Yeah. And in a saxophone quartet, and in a jazz big band. And while he's still learning, Dennis plays a mean saxophone. Yeah. And so, as I've witnessed time and again, community music ensembles, whether they're church choirs or community orchestras or even garage bands, form close-knit social groups. You see, learning music together in a group can be the ultimate icebreaker. Everyone has an opportunity to be a part of the musical conversation. And these groups have proven to be wonderful mixers as well, bringing together diverse groups of people from all types of careers, different types of beliefs and religions, and people all over the political spectrum. And I cannot emphasize enough how important that today in America, people on polar opposites of the political spectrum need to come together and do something good. Yeah. People came from all over, some driving an hour or more each way to rehearsals. And I honestly don't think if it weren't for these ensembles, I don't think these people would have ever crossed paths or met each other. And now they've got these amazing friendships. As time passed, I began to notice that the musicians would come early to rehearsal or stay late for rehearsal and chat and tell stories and laugh. And over time, they began to meet outside of rehearsals, at first to practice, but often to socialize. And then I began to notice that some of the musicians would begin to form their own independent bands and music groups. In fact, Dennis is part of an independent group of saxophonists that give back to the community by performing in local assisted living facilities. Yeah, which is absolutely amazing. And the band evolved as well. Eventually, we became a middle school band. And then a pretty good middle school band. And now I'm actually happy to say that we consider ourselves a high school band. So they're doing great. And all along this journey, we have laughed a lot and played a lot of wonderful music. And then the pandemic hit. And rehearsing over Zoom during the pandemic, even when we couldn't hear each other, became an important way of staying connected and being able to check in on each other, make sure everyone was doing okay. And because online synchronous music ensemble rehearsals didn't work for everyone, go figure, in the spring of 2020, I invited the members of all of these different types of ensembles to come together once a week on a Zoom musical book club. And together, we read the biography of jazz trumpeter Louis Armstrong in the context of and during the Black Lives Matter protests. We read The Inner Game of Music and talked about why music was important in our lives. And as we stayed connected, our community grew stronger, so that when we were finally able to come back together and rehearse in person, in fact, I'll show you, this is us rehearsing on Zoom. But when we were finally able to come back together and rehearse in person, it was like a family reunion. There are well over 100 people in this community right now coming every week to play in these ensembles, and they're welcoming new people and new beginners all the time. So when I look out at this audience, I wonder how many dentists are out there, people who might be interested in learning how to play a musical instrument and now know how to get started. But the point is not that you need to learn how to play the saxophone or that you should join my community band. You might want to join the Sounds of the Seacoast Women's Chorus that you heard this morning at the beginning of the day. Yeah. You might want to take an acting class at New Hampshire Theater Project, or participate in an African drumming circle or dance class at the Kittery Dance Hall. You might want to take a plein air painting class, or read your poetry at the monthly poetry hoot, audition for a play at the Players Ring, or take a memoir writing class. The point is that you should find your creative community, because being creative and being creative in community will not only help you live longer, it will make you live happier and healthier. So don't hesitate. Be like a fifth grader and go for it. Join one of the many happy, creative communities of adult amateurs, a community just like this one.